What happens when a gun-wielding aristocrat faces off against a trespasser who simply picked the wrong farm? Here is a tale of how a simple mistake resulted in fatality and public outrage and a headline-grabbing criminal trial. Will privilege tip the scales of justice? Journey into a legal drama where the definition of murder hangs by a thread, and that thread is as tangled as the history of the man on trial. Our story begins with Thomas Patrick Gilbert Cholmondeley. I know, quite a mouthful of a name. A stiff upper lip and a bewildering sense of entitlement, Cholmondeley owned the vast Delamere estate in Kenya's Rift Valley. So large, in fact, that losing track of a few things here and there was to be expected. Things like, trespassers. But more on that later. Thomas was a man who clearly enjoyed a touch of adventure. One day, he planned a little excursion on his ranch with his longtime buddy Carl Tundo. Their mission? To scout out a prime spot for Carl's new house. You see, being the typical friend indeed, Thomas had agreed to let Carl put up a farmhouse for himself on the sprawling Delamere estate. Coincidentally, on the day of Thomas and Carl's planned excursion, a local villager had plans of his own, which also involved the Delamere property. Enter Robert Njoya, a hapless village poacher who, as we shall see, had the terrible misfortune of picking Cholmondeley's land as his playground that fateful day. The ranch was a bit of a wildlife hotspot, which might explain why Robert was so drawn to it in the first place. Meanwhile, Thomas was also thinking of the wildlife, and since he felt that wild animals couldn't be trusted, wisdom dictated that he carry some serious firepower while heading out with his buddy Carl. He packed a rifle, loaded with 2 rounds, plus a box of extra ammo. Armed and ready, the duo hopped into Carl's Toyota RAV4 and up the hills they went. So now, we have a zealous trespasser coupled with a no-nonsense gun-wielding homeowner. What could possibly go wrong? After a brief inspection of the potential property, which Carl deemed too bushy and unscenic, the two friends opted to ditch the car and stroll into the wild a bit. This is where the plot thickens. While wandering about in the bush, Carl decided to take a bathroom break. Left alone, Thomas thought he heard some sounds in the surrounding thickets. He thought of the wild buffalo that had recently run amok and killed 3 people, and was determined not to become a statistic. However, listening closer, he realized those were men's voices. He could have sworn he heard them mutter that he was about as threatening as a rubber duck and wouldn't do a thing to them, or their dogs.